Squatting is impacting America in that it's causing property to be damaged. It's causing property to be wasted in how it's being used. It's increasing the amount of legal proceedings that are being commenced, which is time and energy of government resources.
Squatters have turned a mansion into a party house. Police have tried and failed to shut down that party mansion since it started.
People in a local apartment complex say squatters are breaking into their homes and even being violent.
Buying a dream home turned into a nightmare. You heard him. For this family from Queens. The house came with something the new owners did not bargain for: a squatter.
Squatting is an unlawful possession of a premises. We kind of see it in two situations. One is typically in a foreclosure aspect where people are coming into an abandoned property, or if they know that an owner or a landlord has abandoned a property, they come in and they take over possession of a property. And then the second way that we're seeing it is when people are taking on other people's identity, and they're using sort of fraud to lease out an apartment or a home, and they pay their first month's security and first month's rent, and then they completely stop paying after that. And now a landlord is stuck with someone in possession of their property who they thought they were entering into with one person, and it actually turned out to be another.
You have every right to be in the house at all. You do not. You do not, because according to my lease, me and my girlfriend owns the house. So I don't know what you need to take up with the police, whatever the case may be.
I own the house.
But yeah. Okay. No.
In my line of work, I've seen squatting under the two scenarios that I've described. Under the foreclosure proceedings, you have people who are actually professionals at finding these foreclosed upon homes and taking over, gutting them, living there, and then trying to extort the situation when the landlord or the bank is trying to have them removed. So I've seen it in that context, and they drag out the process because they're very familiar with it, usually not their first time. And then the other scenario that I've seen is whether it's a small landlord or a big landlord, people are entering into these fraudulent lease agreements with other people's names, and the landlord will start a case against them, and you'll get a phone call from the real person from another state saying, "That's not me. I see a judgment on my record. I see that I'm being sued, and that's not me." And by the time the landlord has figured it out, it's really too late because there's a lease agreement, and now they have to go through the court process, which can be very long, time-consuming, and expensive. The typical cost and length of these procedures vary from state to state. In some states, such as New York, it can take several months, even a year. It can cost thousands of dollars, anywhere between $10,000 and $50,000 or $75,000 to remove someone from the premises if they're squatting or if they're there under false pretenses. It's a very lengthy process. It's definitely a burden on small landlords who they're trying to collect rent to pay their mortgage, and now you have someone living there that's not paying you. It's really a civil matter. Typically when a landlord or an owner calls and says, "I have someone living in my home and I would like to get them out," usually the police, they don't want to get involved. They usually say, "This is a civil matter, go to housing court, go to landlord-tenant court, and the courts will figure this out." Squatting has been around for a long time, but we're definitely seeing an increase of it now more than ever, given a few things. One, foreclosures are up. From not only month to month, but year to year. That leads to abandoned properties. When a property gets foreclosed upon and the bank takes it back, the bank is usually an absentee owner, and they're not looking over the property, and then it becomes a very easy target for someone to come in and take it. The other thing that we're seeing is, due to the increase in migration to the country, you have a shortage of housing, which is already a problem. And now you have a huge influx of people coming into the country with really nowhere to go. Although they're giving temporary housing, it's not a permanent solution. So people are really looking for somewhere that they can possibly stay long-term. And again, they're looking to these kinds of long-term things. I mean, the other third factor is crime is up. So people who are taking these lease agreements under fraudulent type of persons or identities, that's the third factor that's kind of leading to this increase. They usually are looking for properties in the news or even in court proceedings to see if they're vacant. So they'll check foreclosure proceedings to see if a house is in foreclosure. Sometimes they'll just monitor a neighborhood and see if it's kind of like an abandoned neighborhood and look for specific types of homes that they can get into. I've seen scenarios where people break into, the basement window, and then they repair it and they take over the whole property and then start telling people that they're the owner or even just a tenant and take over the whole, property that way. So they're very clever, they're very savvy, and you really have to be careful in these situations. The legislature really needs to get involved on a state-by-state basis to change laws to make it easier to remove squatters. From what I can see, I believe it is only going to get worse. I don't see anything changing, whether it's from a legislative point of view or from an economic point of view, where the need for housing is going to drop, or the criminality of it is going to change. So I think given all the circumstances that are going on in the nation today, whether it's the migration, whether it's the increase in foreclosures, I don't see that this is going away in the foreseeable future.